sheets. I was born and raised in Charleston, West Virginia, and I currently live in Johnson City, Tennessee. And I want to introduce you to my exhibit of watercolor art, which will be up from June the 3rd through June the 29th, with a reception with the artist on the 17th of June, 5 to 7, here at the McKinney Center. I like to paint in watercolor, and I think I started watercolor because my first art teacher actually showed me how to do watercolor, and I was, I don't know, 7th grade, 8th grade, like that. But I have artists in my family, both aunts and uncles, and we used to get together and paint on a Sunday afternoon, and they did watercolor. It's just an easy media to work with. It's not an easy media to paint with because it requires a whole lot of discipline, which you just learn from doing over and over. And I must say, you learn from taking classes here at McKinney Center. I started really painting more continuously when I was teaching at the University of Charleston in Charleston, West Virginia, and I would take the summers off and go camping. And this was a medium that I could take with me and sit outside and paint, and that's partly why I started painting miniatures, because you don't want to sit there all day and paint a huge big thing. So a little painting captures a scene. So I took a course here, actually 3 courses here, with Jenny Wall, and she's a magnificent watercolorist and a super teacher. I recommend her highly, and a good friend. I learned so much, just how to control the water and the paint on the paper so that I get the effect that I want, which isn't always true, but I have a better chance now. But that's kind of how I've evolved into a lot of the different paintings that you'll see in this show. And some of them actually are things that I did in Jenny's class as homework, not based on what we did in class, but taking those techniques and going one step further to see, oh, okay, we learned how to do water splashing over rocks. Let me see if I can do it in a scene different than the one we did in class. But my cloud study is based on a study from a student whose exhibit I went to at East Tennessee State University. And she had done a year, I think it was, overseas. And she wanted to practice something every day. So every day she painted a pear. And it was on a piece of paper about yay big. But it was only one pear. So she had an entire wall of all pieces of paper that size with one pear on it. And I was so impressed that she was so dedicated to learn how to paint one subject over and over and over. And each one was different. Of course, you learn. And pears come in a lot of different colors and shapes. And so I thought, well, I really need to practice clouds and just different moods and different color combinations. And, it was really hard for me not to just do clouds. I ended up doing a little scene on most of them. Some of the clouds are you're up in the clouds. Some of the clouds are with mountains poking through the clouds. But I learned so much just practicing clouds, thinking them out. Okay, what's this cloud doing, and how is it floating, and how do I show that? I would think, and a lot of the teachers in science that I know are also artists, whether they do it in a different media or just on the blackboard. But this was before we had all kinds of electronics that had, you could just go find a picture of something. You had to draw your own, and I taught anatomy, so I had to draw the bits and pieces of whatever I was talking about. And they made the mistake of giving me a box of colored chalk. And I was delighted. So I had these pictures all over the board, and then I would talk through, whatever. But it was great. And I think that, that just made it more interesting to me to be able to represent it. And you learn about something when you have to represent it. And that's whether you're talking to someone or whether you're painting something. You have to get the accuracy of it. You have to think about, well, why is it this way? And it's just a great way of learning things. And so I think that's the science in me and also, I mean, gosh, there's such a gorgeous world out there that God gave us. I just want to capture it and hold it in my heart all the time. And painting, it allows me to do that. Well, the cookbook, oh my gosh. I started that way back a couple of decades ago with the idea that it would be fun to have a cookbook that focused on menus that went well with picnicking. I love to cook, so I started collecting recipes, and then I thought, well, I need to organize these, and so I thought, well, you know, we'll have picnics all year round. And then I thought, well, maybe we need themes for these picnics, and so I came up with themes for each month. 3 themes per month. And then I thought, well, people need to know what food to serve with that theme. And so it just kind of snowballed into how to collect the information. And then I thought, you know, this book needs to be illustrated. I think it was in March that I started the first painting. And I went out to Lake Watauga and I sat there and I sketched out things to kind of say, well, what do I want this month to look like? And strangely, I started in July. I don't know why I picked that, but the theme came up okay. So there's a big tree in July, and I think it's one of the trees out at the lake, and people are picnicking under it. So I just, you know, it just kind of grew. You know, once I got into it, I wasn't afraid of it anymore, and it was like, well, now what can I do with this month? You know, and so then I'd get my imagination and the menus and everything, and I'd think, you know, what should that month look like? And it just was fun. It was great fun. Just really enjoy the challenge of the watercolor. And with watercolor, you have to really think it out. You have to think it out. You have to know how much water, how much paint, you know, how you want this to work. You have to let it dry in between. You have to take away your hard edges or live with them. It's just there's so much challenging. And I think that's my nature. I like that challenge. Come see my show. It's just been fun to put together. I want to thank Charles Jones for the framing. I mean, he makes it look so good and so professional. I'm just very impressed. I totally appreciate his talent and the generosity of his coming to help me. I think everybody should have art on their walls, things that they rest their eyes on and think about and go into, especially like a nature thing, like the ones with rivers, and go there, or if it's got the ocean in it, you think, oh God, I'd like to be at the ocean. Well, this is the best I can do at the time. So yeah, put some art on your walls. And that's also why I like to do little miniatures, because every house has a nook and cranny, a little piece of wall that could use some decoration, and a little painting would fit just perfectly there. So purchase my cookbook. It's here at the end of the row of paintings from the original paintings from the cookbook, yes. And while you're here, sign up for a class. It's a great experience. Wonderful teachers. It's something you can do for your soul. And that's how I see it. It just makes me happy. And then it's not something that just happens here. You go home and you can create that same kind of happiness with whatever type of art that you like to do. And there's so many offered by the McKinney Art Center. So come and join it.